So we should have about half an hour, 40 minutes, if that's okay with you, depending on your
Okay.
availability.
No, that is fine. I think I have to, yeah, I have to finish before 6 p.m. in my time, which is going to be your 8 p.m. So as soon as we finish before the 8 p.m. in your time, is fine.
Okay. In a different time zone as well. So, Cachita, when we reach the 8 p.m., just give us a buzz and then we move on. Ai, boa
Ok.
noite para todo
No worries.
mundo. Nós estamos aqui em mais uma live do nosso canal Instituto Liberdade Conservadora. Temos o nosso convidado internacional de hoje. Catita, por favor, faça as honras.
Boa noite a todos. Quero cumprimentar primeiramente o nosso convidado, o jornalista Juan Shehin, mexicano, morando na Flórida. E ao cumprimentá-lo, estendo meus cumprimentos aos nossos ouvintes da rádio e também aos nossos espectadores. E um cumprimento especial nesta noite aos nossos irmãos da América Latina, que estão hoje aqui representados pelo Juan. Boa noite a todos, podemos começar.
Juan, thanks for coming on. If you could give us a little introduction of yourself now, your work. I've seen quite a lot of what you do, but I would like you to tell us more of you actually doing the social media, your work as a whole, and
I hope you guys can hear me there. Is that okay?
That's okay, yes.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much for your, first of all, thank you so much for your invitation. I'm a journalist. I live in the US. I've been covering different kind of events as a correspondent over the last 3-4 years. I've been always a podcaster. So I started my own podcast 4 years ago. So, which is in Latin America, we always say like a podcaster from a 4 year ago, podcaster, especially for Latin America, is you can say that you're kind of the oldest ones because Latin America is not proper, recognizing podcasts. I would say probably podcasts started to be a trendy in Latin America since maybe the last 2 years. So I started 4 years ago when pretty much almost nobody was, knows at the time what was a podcast, which is different in the American market. The people in the American market has been listening podcasts over the last 5 years. So we started a podcast. The name is Juntos Pero No Revueltos. Juntos, I think you say in Portuguese. And so I started as a podcaster. I was always been a radio announcer. A radio announcer means that I had my own radio show a few years ago in syndicate radio in my own country, Mexico. And then I've been doing, voiceover for different occasions in different industries like documentaries and advertising. So when I started the podcast, we always wanted to have a show which is very much oriented to pop culture show, so we can be able to interview, all kinds of people. I mean, as long as they could be interesting people and they have something interesting to say. So we've been interviewing, scientists, doctors, politicians, musicians, artists. So pretty much, as we said, the show is pretty much about like a pop culture show. When we interview, we are open to talk with everybody and listen to everybody. So that is pretty much that I'm doing. I'm collaborating with a couple of news broadcasting agencies here in the US over the last year and a half. And we recently opened a new channel in YouTube named UNE. Like UNE means like a union. And we're promoting all kinds of, works and voices over Latin America and Hispanic America, because we have journalists from every part of the world. We have Latin journalists based in Spain, Latin journalists based in Japan, you know, UK, United Kingdom, here in the US, and we hear pretty much voices from all over. So that channel, UNE, was made for these journalists that they don't have, you know, pretty much like a big space, or they don't work in a big broadcast company or in a big syndicate or TV company, you know, and they have voices, and all of them have something interesting to say. So we give them that space for them to promote their work, their voice, and their opinions. So that's what we're currently doing, and I'm very glad to be here with you guys today, and I really thank you for this invitation.
Oh, that's a pleasure. That's our pleasure to have you here. So let's start with the questions. Cachita, she can ask in Portuguese. If you don't understand, I'm here to translate if need be.
Sure.
So, Cachita, por favor, tenha bondade.
Você não vai fazer a tradução para o nosso público?
Eu vou colocar, só para o público ficar sabendo, nós vamos colocar legendas no vídeo, estamos trabalhando com isso. Devido ao tempo que a gente tem, que é muito escasso, eu não vou estar traduzindo simultaneamente. Catito, você pode perguntar em português, se o Juan precisar da tradução, eu vou na sequência.
Tá bem. Juan, a minha primeira pergunta é com relação à política econômica na Latinoamérica para um futuro próximo, porque na atualidade, nós aqui brasileiros, sabemos como está. Como que você vê, né, essa política econômica para os países da Latinoamérica, em especial esses que vivem pela ditadura ou pelo comunismo, países que estão sendo governados pela esquerda? Como que você vê o futuro político-econômico dos países latino-américa?
Okay with that one?
Well, yeah, that's fine. I'm going to make, Edu, I'm going to make the answer and give you time to translate, correct?
Go ahead.
Yeah. So, okay, in terms of economics, I think Latin America is a different mosaic or different textures, because there is a very big difference between the economics you find, for example, in countries like Chile, and the economics you find in countries like Nicaragua. So we can definitely, in terms of economics, I guess we have to go country by country. But there's a characteristic that I would say probably that we're currently finding in terms of economics, especially political economics in Latin American countries today, which is, for some reason, the economics are, for one side, are completely attached to the politics. In most of the countries, the economics are totally attached to the politics. And the way we find the economics attached to the politics, I think, is in a certain way limiting the opportunities for those countries specifically, so they can be able to do business, especially in a world that is currently global in economical terms. Edu.
Ok. Olha, ele está explicando aqui para a gente que as diferenças de país para país são muito grandes, é um mosaico de diferenças que nós temos, por exemplo, comparando Chile, Nicarágua. Então, nós temos que fazer essa comparação país a país e, de modo geral, a economia é conectada diretamente com a política, o que impacta no mercado internacional, no mercado globalizado que nós temos hoje. Ok. Agora, a minha pergunta mais específica. Juan, eu queria que você desse I'm going to translate, so don't worry. Ok. Eu queria que você desse um panorama para a gente da diferença, por exemplo, entre a direita e a esquerda no Brasil com a direita e a esquerda na América Latina de modo geral. So if you could give us an example of the difference between the left and the right in Brazil as compared to Latin America in general.
Okay, that is a very good question, because I think there is hold on, my camera is sweeping here, sorry. I think it's a very good question, because there is still a confusion between the left and the rights. There is a huge confusion between the left. There is the left, or as we know it, the Democrat left, right? Which is pretty much different from the communism. I mean, there is a certain kind of a left that is more humanistic and understands what the global economy is and pushes for the liberty of the economy. That left is also pushing for the human rights, the natural rights, the protection of the nature, which I understand there's a big, huge movement, but it's constantly confused with the socialism that we can see, much more oriented to the communism, right? As we see, for example, in Venezuela, in countries like Venezuela or Nicaragua. For me, I prefer to go between the lefts and the rights. I sometimes classify it as a good government and bad government and awful governments. Yeah. So there is a populist governments against the democratic governments. The phenomenon we're fighting for is populism against democracy. It's not exactly left versus right. It's populism versus democracy. And that's the way I see it. So no matter, it doesn't matter. You can see, for example, countries like Chile, that they've been having, for example, governments, presidents from the left side and presidents from the right, or presidents from the center. The thing is that there is good governments and bad governments, and there is tyrannies. There's tyrants. And the way we find these tyrants, and in a certain way, these tyrants or these tyrannies are much more well organized than before through the Foro de Sao Paulo. It seems like a method that these kind of tyrannies are using to penetrate democracies, use the democracy to reach the power or to reach the presidency or to reach to the power of the country. And then after that, they step up in that power and they kick off the stairs, and they don't want to they don't want to leave nobody else to reach there, democratically speaking. These tyrannies are using the democracy to get into the power, and once they are there, they want to be there forever, using the politics, the distortion of the politics, and distorting the ideas of the people on what is fair and what is not fair. They're using in a certain way mostly the poor people, the people of the people with less resources, with a wishful thinking about revenge. Like it almost like they want to show that the rich people or the people with media class or medium class are the bad ones, right? And the poor are the good ones. So that's the kind of speech this kind of tyrannies use. My worst fear is Latin America is falling very much into that. And of course, there's different reasons. Sorry, I extend my answer, Edu. I don't know if you want to take it from there.
I got most of it, yeah, no worries.
Yeah, all right.
Bom, a pergunta foi então sobre a diferença e a semelhança entre a direita e a esquerda no Brasil e na América Latina de modo geral. O que o Juan estava aqui falando para a gente é que o espectro da direita e da esquerda não é tão preto e branco, aqui na minha própria interpretação, porque, por exemplo, há os democratas nos Estados Unidos, que são uma esquerda, mas não são uma esquerda socialista ou pessoalista, como nós conhecemos no Brasil, para ser mais claro aqui. E tudo tem inúmeras variantes, dependendo da região, mas que leva a um ponto comum, que é a perpetuação dos esquerdistas raiz, utilizando o povo, de modo geral, e, na maior parte, os mais pobres, para se adentrarem aos governos de forma supostamente democrática, mas se perpetuarem neste governo, impedindo que outros governos de fato democráticos possam, então, tomar o poder. Isso é algo que na América Latina tem acontecido de forma recorrente. A América Latina está cedendo a essa tendência. Catita.
Correto.
Bem, agora eu não sei se eu já posso entrar no próximo assunto que conversamos, Juan, que é a sua linha investigativa com relação aos médicos cubanos. Aqui no Brasil, tivemos o programa Mais Médicos, e viemos a descobrir muito depois, com o governo Bolsonaro, que esse programa era quase que um trabalho análogo para os médicos cubanos, no sentido de que eles não recebiam aquilo que estaria em contrato, porque parte desse dinheiro iria para o governo de Cuba e não para os profissionais. Nessa linha investigativa, você teria como adiantar alguma coisa a respeito desse programa nos demais países, ou ainda é cedo para falar dessa sua linha investigativa?
You okay with that one?
Yeah, I'm okay. Thank you, Edu. Yeah, sí, Katia, mira, I've been doing this research from a very, very long time ago. I'm currently producing a documentary about the Cuban medics, the Cuban doctors. One of the things that we found between all the investigations we made before is that Cuban doctors are the subject of the experiment that Cuba has been made over the last 34 years. They perfected the way they're doing business with the Cuban doctors. In a certain way, this activity shows a modern kind of slavery, because one of the things they do, and I'm talking about the dictatorship, the Cuban dictatorship. One of the things they do is they keep the families of these doctors inside Cuba. I mean, they don't allow the families to travel with them. The families are kept in Cuba as a guarantee, right, to threat the doctors, like in case they wanna leave, or they want to escape, right, in the country they're being hired. They're gonna keep their families in Cuba. The government is gonna keep the families in Cuba. They're not going to allow them to see their families, the children, or the wives, or the husbands, right, in the next probably between 8 and 10 years. Then other thing is that there is this belief that worldwide, these Cuban missions, the way they call it, right, they send these missions to many countries, making it show that there is a human thing that Cuba heroically is doing or performing to help other countries. At the end of the day, this is a business. And the Cuban dictatorship is keeping the 85% of what these doctors make. I mean, usually the way they make the type of the contract, they charge $10,500, $10,070 something. It's 10,000. I would say $10,700 per each doctor for a 3-month contract. So, like, the 3-month contract is $10,700 for each doctor, and from that, the Cuban dictatorship keeps the 85%. This means that Cuba is making yearly the income they have do these medical missions in a yearly basis is more than $8.5 billion. This is only for these medical missions. And, when these doctors travel, when they travel, they usually, in every country they go, there is someone from the Cuban embassy waiting for them. And they pick up their passports. They don't allow them to call nobody. They take out his cellular phones, passport, everything. They don't allow them to speak with anybody. They have to eat and have dinner and have breakfast, all of them at the same time in the same place. And a lot of things are going on. So in this documentary we're preparing, there's a lot of voices, including voices from the European Parliament, that they speak, very firmly on what they discover. And part of the people, or the group of people who put all the claims and the demands against the UN and and with the worldwide human rights about these medical missions, which are definitely a form of modern slavery, the way we call it.
Give me just a sec.
Sure.
Ok, então a pergunta foi a respeito da investigação do Juan em relação aos médicos cubanos, o que nós conhecemos no Brasil como o programa Mais Médicos, né, que de fato o governo do PT levou inúmeros médicos para o Brasil, neste mesmo esquema que o Juan estava descrevendo, e ele está produzindo um documentário a respeito disso, sobre esses médicos cubanos que são, em outras palavras, traficados ao redor do mundo, através do que é chamado de a missão médica cubana, colocando Cuba como se fosse uma grande ajuda para o mundo com estes médicos, que nada mais são do que escravos da era moderna, né, tendo suas famílias como reféns em Cuba, ou seja, eles são escravos do sistema, não podem fugir de Cuba, pedir asilo político, porque suas famílias sofrerão as consequências. Cuba fica com 85% do que é pago para estes médicos, é pago diretamente ao governo de Cuba, eles não veem a cor desse dinheiro, e isso gera uma receita de aproximadamente 8,5 bilhões de dólares para o governo de Cuba, sendo 10.700 dólares a cada 3 meses por médico. Mais uma vez, 85% disso indo direto para o governo de Cuba. E quando eles chegam no país de destino, as embaixadas tomam os passaportes, telefones, os deixam incomunicáveis para que ninguém saiba do que está sendo feito e que, nesse documentário do Juan, por exemplo, ele vai estar trabalhando em conjunto com os direitos humanos, com a ONU, países que recebem estes médicos, que nada mais são do que escravos da era moderna. Juan, thanks for sharing that with us. And there's one question I have about this in particular. What do you say about the quality and the qualification of these professionals when they get to the countries where they're sent to? Are they actually able to perform as medical doctors? Então, a minha pergunta para ele foi a respeito da qualidade e da qualificação desses profissionais, se eles estão de fato aptos a exercer a medicina.
Well, Edu, that's a very good question. We recently discovered, I had the opportunity to interview one of the senators from a Democratic Party in my own country, in Mexico, that they discovered that most of the medics that in the case of Mexico is hiring, most of them are not even doctors. I mean, they didn't finish their studies. I mean, some of them are not even doctors. They don't know how even to measure a temperature or to manage like a thermometer or to use a thermometer. It's like a kind of a fraud, right? Because the country is currently paying for doctors, but some of these people are not even doctors. According to the investigations we made, we discovered that some of these people, for example, are spies or people that go to the country that they are visiting to do proselytism in favor of the regime that is hiring them, or the Cuban regime. So not all of them are doctors. The infrastructure that Cuba has today, even that they have a very good reputation to have great doctors, very, very good doctors. The history is telling us that they have a very good infrastructure. The truth is, when you go to Cuba, and I've been there a couple times, and when you see the installations they have there, honestly, they don't have the infrastructure. Even if they have very good doctors theoretically speaking, they don't have the field and the infrastructure for these doctors acquire some experience. So because they don't have hospitals, there's only one single hospital who attends pretty much the high-ranking generals of the army and politicians, but the general population, they don't have. They have hospitals that are literally. They're falling apart. They don't have the basic medication. They don't have the basic supplements. So even if we're talking about good doctors, theoretically speaking, that because they study medicine, they don't have the infrastructure to practice, and that is pretty much very difficult. But this is true. We already discovered, this party in Mexico and this senator and his group discovered that Mexico has been paid more than $6 million to Cuba, to the dictatorship of Cuba, for doctors. And most in the last missions they received, they discovered that almost 600 of those doctors are not even doctors. They don't have any title. They don't have any papers. They're not accredited by no one, neither from the University of La Habana or Cuba. So it's tragic. These guys are doing business, and the way I see it, for example, in countries like Mexico, like my country, that there's a lot of people suffering for lack of medication, lack of treatments for cancer for children and women, lack of vaccination, right, for COVID vaccination, there is no money for that. And how the hell are they paying more than $6 million to the Cuban dictatorship for doctors that not even are doctors? So this is what is happening. This is what we discovered. And it seems like it's happening in most of the countries they're working with.
So basically a health hazard, if anything, right?
That's right.
Ok. Bom, o Juan estava explicando aqui para a gente na pergunta que eu fiz a respeito da qualidade, da qualificação desses supostos médicos cubanos, que como todos nós já tínhamos em mente aqui, grande parte deles, se não todos, são uma fraude, porque em Cuba não tem a infraestrutura necessária para treiná-los, para que eles possam exercer a medicina de forma adequada. Você tem um ou outro hospital para o creme de la creme, que são os oficiais, ou os turistas que vão para Cuba e voltam falando muito bem de Cuba, os nossos petralhas, por exemplo, mas que a maioria dos hospitais para a população não tem a infraestrutura necessária para que um ser humano seja atendido. Ele também estava aqui comentando com a gente que o México, por exemplo, que é um país que sofre com os seus próprios problemas a nível de hospitais e material e infraestrutura, pagou $6 milhões para Cuba nesse programa de missões dos médicos, né, o nosso Mais Médicos equivalente, e 600 desses médicos foram comprovadamente desmascarados como não sendo profissionais da saúde. O que nós comentamos logo na sequência, que acaba sendo um perigo à saúde pública, ao invés de contribuir com ela. Juan, thank you very much for your answer on that. We don't have much time left, so Catita, if you want to get your final considerations e considerações finais, Catita, por favor.
Antes das minhas considerações finais, Edu, eu gostaria de fazer uma última pergunta ao Juan. E essa última pergunta diz respeito ao governo brasileiro, especificamente ao presidente Bolsonaro, porque nós sabemos que a mídia marrom, comprada, lá fora não passa as verdadeiras obras do governo Bolsonaro, e o tem como homofóbico, como genocida e tantas outras coisas, e que nós, brasileiros de direita, né, sabemos que tudo isso são invenções da mídia marrom. Então eu gostaria de saber do Juan como que os povos, os nossos irmãos da América Latina, olham para o governo Bolsonaro, olham para o nosso país, política e economicamente, e se realmente eles acreditam em tudo que a mídia fala. Você poderia explicar um pouquinho para nós, Juan, por favor?
Okay with that, Juan?
I think so. Let me see if I understood correctly. But the way we see Bolsonaro's government, I mean, and I'm talking about generally speaking, and this is not my point of view. This is like, imagine like a table of friends, like they're sitting like to have a lunch or have a beer, and this is a conversation between coffee or beers or whatever, and between them. And this is mostly because what we see in the media, right? And that we see in the media a Bolsonaro that between the things that the main issues that he's not managing correctly the pandemic, he doesn't believe in coronavirus, and you know that you can hide that because my country has the same issue. I mean, we have a president that he doesn't believe in the coronavirus. He's not using the mask, the face mask. He don't want to use the face mask. He doesn't believe in that. So, but more beyond of that, I mean, out of Brazil, there is no clue, or the clues are not clear on how Bolsonaro is managing the economy. So what we see sometimes on the outside is only the worst, and that is what that the people keeps and speaks about, right? For example, what is happening in the Amazonia, right? The fire issues in the Amazonia. What is happening with the COVID and the way he's managing the COVID, that he's a very rebel guy because his character and the way he speaks. But more than that, I mean, I'm aware that every government has his ups and downs, or his clear side and his shadowy side. right? I would say probably, and this is in my opinion, right? I have been in Brazil 3 times. Brazil is a country that I love. I have many friends in Brazil. I've been 2 times in Sao Paulo, 2 times in Rio, 1 time in Foz de Iguaçu, and I know I have very good friends in Minas Gerais, in Brazil, and in Brasilia, sorry. And what I think is either or, Brazil has a very strong economy that if it's being well administered, the potential that Brazil has, right, could be probably twice as what we're seeing today. And like my country, Brazil has suffered over the years from corruption and from, you know, what we saw what happened on the Lula years and all that stuff. And, you know, but Brazil has been having all the potential in economies like the Brazil economy, like the Mexican economy. These are countries that can be able to raise pretty much very fast, very quick from every problem. The thing is the corruption is pretty much what we're fighting against. Same in Mexico, we have the same issue. You know, the corruption, the parties, and one party is making you think that these guys in the government are doing this. Sorry, can you hear me?
We can hear you now, yeah.
Yeah, we have a shortage. So, and from the other side, we have the people from the government who's making you think that the opposition is pretty bad. So I think that Brazilian economy is definitely has the potential to grow as long as they can be able to succeed fighting against the corruption.
Perfect. Catita's question, desculpa, a pergunta da Catita foi sobre a visão do presidente na América Latina de modo geral. Catita, dá uma recapitulada na questão, por favor, porque eu anotei tanta coisa que eu acabei me esquecendo do que você perguntou.
A pergunta era como os povos da América Latina olham o nosso presidente diante de tantos abusos, né, da mídia marrom, que falam que ele é genocida, que ele é homofóbico, essas mentiras. Se eles de fato acreditam nisso, ou se eles olham para o Brasil de uma forma diferente com relação ao nosso governo.
Perfeito. O que o Juan estava explicando para a gente aqui é que, de modo geral, as pessoas comuns ouvem falar de Bolsonaro aquilo que a mídia coloca para eles, que é que não está agindo muito bem em relação à pandemia, que nega a existência do vírus, não tem muita informação a respeito da parte econômica do governo federal, fala-se muito também de Amazônia, queimadas, enfim, aquele papo que todos nós sabemos que a mídia brasileira gosta de exportar, então não foi muita novidade nisso. O Juan também complementou dizendo que gosta muito do Brasil, que já esteve lá algumas vezes, 2 vezes em São Paulo, 2 no Rio, Foz do Iguaçu, Brasília, e que ele acredita que o Brasil tem um grande potencial, que assim como o México sofre por conta da corrupção, né, que há a divisão partidária, um acusa o outro do que estão fazendo na maior parte das vezes, mas que apesar de tudo isso, o Brasil tem um grande potencial econômico, assim como o México, que precisamos todos vencer a corrupção. Juan, thanks again. Thanks for coming on. Our time is up. I know that you have to go, so thank you once again. Catita, do you want to say something else?
Ok. Juan, eu não falo espanhol, como já falei para você, mas estou estudando com um professor peruano. E as minhas considerações finais, com todo respeito ao meu péssimo espanhol, vai ser em espanhol, em respeito aos nossos ouvintes nesta noite, que são da América Latina. Com a sua permissão, finalizo agradecendo a oportunidade ao senhor Daniel Sassi, de Argentina, que por 20 anos ha estado a cargo do projeto Pedro Jesus de las Misiones Argentinas e trabalhando conjuntamente com o Dr. Ricardo Lorenzetti de la Corte Suprema de Argentina desde hace 15 anos hasta la fecha, luchando por la justiça, liberdade e la paz em América Latina. Também a la senhora Noemi, que hizo o puente entre Juan e nosso canal brasileiro. Sin ella, este momento no hubiera ocorrido. Les deseo buenas noches a todos. Traduzindo para os nossos ouvintes e espectadores brasileiros, finalizo agradecendo a oportunidade ao senhor Daniel Sassi, da Argentina, que por 20 anos está à frente do projeto Pedro Jesus de Misiones, na Argentina, e trabalhando conjuntamente com o Dr. Ricardo Lorenzetti, da Suprema Corte da Argentina, há quase 15 anos, lutando pela justiça, liberdade e paz na América Latina. Também agradeço à senhora Noemi, que fez a ponte entre o jornalista Juan e o nosso canal brasileiro. Sem ela, este momento não teria acontecido. Desejo a todos uma boa noite.
Kátia, Edu, é um honor para mim. Eu tenho muitos bons amigos em Brasil. So, uma honra para mim por estar aqui. E muito obrigado. Muito obrigado.
Nós é que agradecemos, nos colocamos à sua disposição para que possamos contribuir com seus projetos aqui no Brasil. Conte conosco.
Encantado.
Muito obrigado. Pessoal, não esqueçam de dar aqui o seu like, de se inscrever no canal, de seguir o Juan também nas mídias dele. As descrições vão estar aqui embaixo. Juan, mais uma vez, obrigado. Fica com a gente mais um pouquinho. E boa noite para todo mundo. Até mais.
Tchau, tchau.